Raze is arguably the strongest agent you can pick on Lotus, but how does Foot stomp a world-class team of Fnatic without a Raze? For this week's video, we'll be breaking down Foot versus Fnatic's map 2 on Lotus from their upper bracket quarterfinals match. What's up guys, it's your boy here, and today I'll be breaking down some rounds from VCT Masters Shanghai. So basically what Fnatic wants is that they want to take A control. A control is kind of hard for Foot because they don't have a Raze, right? So you would want to use like Raze nade with the breach combo. Foot wants to fight for A and contest for A, but they do it kind of differently and uniquely. So they do this breach stun, barely misses the Raze. This is what they had in mind, but the timing was very bad for the blind and the door open. So Cena dies here. Blind's gone. Mr. Fallen Piece kills him. TP's out for free. Fnatic kind of gets sort of lucky that Durka doesn't get stunned. He somehow like finds a gap here, and the Omen Blind is a little bit late to catch him. The cost of not running Raze is in order to take A control, not having Raze nade here, Raze double satchels here, you can't really claim the space for free. If you had a Raze nade, that solves all your problems at the start of the round. Durka would be out on an island 100%. If you look at these positions again, if Cena was on Raze, could this have looked any better? I'd say yes, because if you want to play for the nade combo stack, right, because you have a breach, right, you can just breach stun here. I think the same idea is very possible, where you just breach stun and you nade. Pretty sure you'd get the kill. And if you don't do that, you can also just open the door, and then they have a defensive Viper wall, right? Defensive Viper wall, something like this. And all they would need to do is, as you tap the door, you put the wall up, and then you could also just Raze nade here behind the Viper wall if you want some safety. Then the Omen Blind comes out, then he peeks. I think he would have a much easier time. You can also change your Raze nade. You don't have to like nade here. You can also nade deep since you have the Viper wall covering you. I think you would have more success. In a way, it kind of feels like Foot is doing a trap setup. So I think it would have worked, but I also think it's because Cena is just way more comfortable on Raze. So that's probably one of the reasons why they opt to run the Jet over the Raze. But again, this is also why like you're losing so much utility value just from not playing Raze. So like a good example is like a Jet main that I was playing Raze is like Ye. Ye is a good Jet main, but like Raze is just a better character on this map. And so it's not because like he might be bad on the character or he's not as skillful as like playing Jet, but the utility alone, if you have the setup drawn, it could be more impactful. And obviously like those are just the pros and cons of like what agent you should play, what does your team prefer. And it's also like a pacing thing too, because what if Cena's the kind of guy to overheat, then yeah, you're probably better on the Jet. So it is kind of just like agent preference, but that's kind of like the pros and cons of why you would want to play Jet over Raze and Raze over Jet, basically. You know how like in chess, turn-based game, where it's like, okay, it's your turn, it's the enemy's turn. So if you want to look at it in the same way in Valorant, right, at the start of the round, it should be Foot has the turn by using Raze nade here on the gap, the A main choke. Then it's like Fnatic's turn, right? So Fnatic's turn would be like, okay, how would they respond to the Raze nade, right? And obviously you can contest the turn too, right? Which is like the Raze will double satchel out, or the Omen will TP past the nade. Those are ways that you could skip the turn. But in general, Foot should always have the turn, but because they don't have a Raze, they don't have a first turn, right? There is no first turn, because if you one-way smoke, the one-way smoke is going to take too long because you can already swing past the one-way smoke and peek A main. Because you already lose the first turn, it's incredibly hard to hold A, and so in order to hold A, you got to use like breach stun, Omen flash, maybe even jet dash, and sometimes you got to even use a Viper molly. And then if you really want to have full control, then you might want to use like a camera. You insert a camera somewhere, maybe you need cages. But yeah, you're pretty much going to have to use a piece of util from almost everybody to kind of contest for the first turn. And so I think that's why Foot is going to take A control in the way that they do. So again, he dodges the breach stun. So maybe they're going off of CNED's call, where CNED's the one telling them like, yo, stun, Omen Blind. So there's definitely some mistiming there, because the Omen Blind came out after the fact, and then the breach stun just missed him. That definitely was like a mistiming here. But Mr. Fallen does get a trade back, which kind of puts them in a good position still, where they're 4v4. So what ends up happening is, off of this A action, right? I was talking about turns earlier. We call this like chess, playing chess basically. So their turn is over. So we're in a standstill and something like this. We're in a standstill like this. The Fade is going to start to rotate, right? And while he's rotating, Alpha's taking the space because of what just happened to A. Pretty much as like Mr. Fallen is fighting him, like Alpha walks up basically. Basically they're playing retake B. The breach is going to rotate off of reaction now, like off the next action. But I do think a mistake here is that Captain is not willing to spot check C, or no one's willing to go front B and like potentially contest the turret, because off the information We knew Fnatic had at least 3 here, right? Because they're using utility where the Omen player made a TP. So Boaster TP'd, Raze satchel, Fade Eye, right? Out here in the open. So they know at least 3 are here. And so they don't know where the 2 other players are, right? So it's a question mark if they're here. What Foot needs to do is, instead of using a camera here, if they were going to go for the A fight, like this obviously is probably a preset design, and this is kind of like a hindsight kind of round. But in order to identify like what's happening, they should probably start saving this camera and use the camera to get info like late in the round, or potentially like insert a cam B or C, sorry. That's like the safest way to get information without risking your body. Otherwise, you would risk the breach to, you know, go from B, contest here. I think Captain should be like towards C, maybe jump spot once and check if there's anybody here off of the A action. I think that would have helped put Foot in the best position, but you'll kind of see how they transition. And Fnatic is just kind of in a standstill, and so this is what we call like taking their turn. They've won the A fight and they're going to maintain this A space, and eventually later they're going to open the door to cause an action to kind of bait for the lurk, because it's basically the lurk's turn on attack side. There's not really like defender turns, attacker turns. On attack, Boaster and Chronicle's turn is over, because you want to let the round develop. You want to sell a story, and the story that you want to sell is like, oh hey, we took A control, we're now quiet, we don't know if you're here, and then now you take action C, and it's like, okay, now the defenders, you know, Foot has to react to like, okay, we see Killjoy C, but it's quiet A. You're kind of baiting them to kind of see and try to read a story where it's like, okay, do we need information A? Do we know what's happening A? Do we not know what's happening A? And that's kind of the game that they're playing. And this is technically how you should be playing it. This is the most proper way to play textbook Valorant. Alpha's gonna walk up, defensive viper from Captain, and Leo ends up getting here. Their turn is over, and now it's time for A reaction, because they have the map control and they want to keep them guessing. And so when you keep them guessing and when you smoke here, you deny information, right? And so right now the defense is denied information, but at the same time attackers are denied information, right? They don't really know what's happening here. They can't check for information unless they have a character to use utility, which is going to be Fade, but Fade is towards C. Now they're kind of baiting action blindly, and so the action that they're baiting is they're opening the door. Plan is to go C, as you can see where the bomb carrier is, right? So they want to go back towards C. They're baiting action A, and what this does is this putting some pressure onto the A players, because in order for you to defend A, they need to actively, you know, defend here, or you force them to be in a backwards position. So whereas Omen is here and you open the door, if he doesn't have a smoke, which in this example he doesn't, right, because he smokes A main, he has to look at the door or he has to go backside, which in this case he's probably going to feel the pressure with 0 utility, right, and low HP. He's just going to opt to either play safe or look to just take a free kill and run away, right? So let's see what happens. So he opens the door, you can see how passive he's playing. He hears no sound. He's worried about the A main pop, right? As his Omen smoke comes in, even Captain right here is like hesitating on like, oh, it might be A, because he starts to walk towards water. And this actually almost costed him, but it didn't, because he happened to be here in the right place, right time. Imagine if he was already here, then the round could be over. But because he heard them, like Fnatic just acted too early instead of like letting it develop, and so that's kind of like why Captain runs back to the site, because he's already here. So the defense smoke comes out like here, they open the door and they're like, okay, we gotta do something. And so now they're gonna start rotating back when they tap this door. They throw a Fade Eye. It's kind of a weird timing to do it. The Haunt comes out for backside, and it's like, okay, well, he's not playing here, and he's not playing here. So this solves a little bit of the piece for Fnatic, where it's like, okay, maybe they're playing Retake if they're not playing close. You could obviously assume that he's going to be playing around, like, in these positions, right? Anywhere along these X's. So that's the assumption that Fnatic is now basing off this C exec. And so this goes to my point later why they didn't use the Omen blind for these positions. You take out at least 70% of the positions with the Omen blind. And so Captain is actually in a transition now, because when the Fade Eye happens and the smoke is gone, they are very confused of what's happening, right? So he starts to shift. Boaster actually does a good job of recognizing what he needs to do to kind of sell the round now, because they know something's here, and because they know they don't have a character to necessarily go and get information, because they play a breach, right? They don't play a Sova, they don't play a Sky. In order to get information, they have to body clear, they have to show their body. And obviously the camera is the only other option, right? But the camera, they don't want to show the camera because they're trying to do a retake B setup, so it's kind of unfortunate round. But Boaster knows that they have no information right now, and that's why like they're just super quiet, and that's also why Captain reacts to the A smoke. So Boaster's gonna smoke stairs here, and Captain's gonna react. He like shift walks to here. So now we're in this situation. Krax is here with the stun, and he's gonna hold the stun line for this. and this is to prevent the run-in, and that's super annoying. They don't have the Raze alive to entry for them, and so the other alternative is to use your Omen player to entry frag basically. And so what we need to be doing is comboing this Fade Prowler into Omen Blind into Omen TP combo in order to make our lives a lot easier here. Now Captain doesn't really have any more mollies, and so now it's up to the Breach to kind of stall out the C hit for them. So good Breach stun from Krax, good Aftershock, good delay. So now the poison goes down, the Prowler again. So this orb, I'm not really a fan of from Fnatic, especially because it's not a set orb, because if they put the orb here on top, or if they have a lineup for this would be more optimal, because the orb's very big. It's not really a one-way, you have to hug the back wall. But this orb doesn't really do much value for them because of the free spams that they're able to get off, and they don't really have their entry fragger because he died early over here. So there's not really much of a space creator. So I'd almost prefer if they would just maybe Omen TP to the floor and then they fight the right side, because with his bomb site, like if you just get stalled, it's over, right? But and in this example, like he did the Aftershock right here, he puts the orb up, they got stalled for a bit. It's kind of hard now because they don't have any character that really gets space besides Boaster, and so I think their timing and when to go was a little bit awkward, right? Because like they have nobody to scale in besides the Omen TP, and so again, that's why I would prefer if he Omen blinded. If he just Omen blinds here and then TP's here to get the space, and then that would push off the Breach, and then they could finally scale in while he covers, like, you know, the Breach angles where he'd be playing. If he happens to pick the left side, it's not a big deal, but at least you would get your team into the position that they're in now without them like potentially dying early. That's all. Like obviously, like he got spammed. I think Chronicle got spammed, but in general, I think if the Omen got, or the Breach got blinded, he would have been probably more likely to fall back, and that's kind of what you wanted. But Krax does a really good job with abusing this round. Krax is the MVP of this hold with the Breach Stun here. So they're delayed, right? And then the moment the reaction happens here, he floods in. Like I said, the smoke kind of favors him. He's just spamming. But notice how he doesn't spam all of his bullets. He's still got like 15 bullets now. So he huddles up both on the side with Captain. And the reason why this is such a huge, insane team play here is because he's so confident they're not come here, right? Because of the smoke. It's very hard to run through the smoke and like just go for a fight here. This is like a terrible like thing, right? So what he does is he's so focused on just fighting the right side with his teammate. Captain just manages to get a free frag on the left. Like, that's kind of unfortunate, actually. Like, Alpha could have potentially won that. But notice how, like, their angles and their line of sight, they're looking at the same thing, right? Krax gets a kill. He's 1 HP. That is just insane, right? Flash peek works out in their favor. Like, that is just insane. So, huge round out of foot. All right, that would be it for this week's Masters Shanghai Breakdown. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!